Welcome to my final video covering our trip from Amsterdam to Bruges. Before I forget, let me remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see further videos. Here we are when we first arrive in Bruges. And what do you have to do in Bruges but have a beer and eat some fries? Fries were invented in Belgium, but you probably knew that from earlier videos. If you hadn't, now you got it. If you go to Bruges, watch out for these people, because as you can see, the driver doesn't pay any attention and just expects pedestrians to get out of the way. Here we are on the city square. This is the oldest part of Bruges. You're surrounded by buildings from the 15th century. There are even older buildings other places in the city, and I'll show you those at some point. But these are the traditional buildings from the city center. A little later, I'll show you where the original port was, which was just down the street from our hotel in Bruges. When we arrived in Bruges, it was a very crowded day, and we had found out from a merchant that there were at least 2 cruise ships in port, and when a cruise ship lands near Bruges, there's always a day trip to come in and explore the city. Here we are just to the east of our hotel. This area is the original port in Bruges. The statue of Jan van Eyck represents the popularity and importance of that painter to this town. This is the goods and services area from the original port, and Jan van Eyck is centered there in his bronze statue. This is one of the guild halls that is near the port. This building is where arriving merchants went to register their goods and, of course, pay taxes. Here's a little restaurant we found very interesting. Their sign said basically, we'll be open when we feel like it. Here's one of the canals that leads from the busy port back to the unloading area. And these canals have very colorful flowers on the bridges. The canals are lined with houses and other buildings, and it's a very quaint area. It was kind of raining that day. And in fact, it rained the first couple days we were there. Here's a building from a long time ago. The plaque on the building says 1564. So it's been kept up very well over the centuries. There's Diane on a bridge with some flowers. This is a traditional drawbridge. And there's a more modern bridge. And this is on the canal that actually goes to the Zeebrugge, or Sea Bruges. This is the alleyway near Church of Our Lady, which is the Catholic Church. And this is one of the center plazas. There's 2. This is De Burg, or the city square. This building is the Prosody of Saint Donation. Here we are across Groothuisstrasse from the Groothuis Museum. It borders right up against the Church of Our Lady. The Groothuis Museum is a museum of applied arts, whatever that means. Here's the steeple of the Church of Our Lady. Here's a street performer we saw that first day in town, and we thought he was very good.
Careful with that.
Vale.
Si son de 2 pesos.
You are in Bruges.
Sitting near a canal. Now I'm going to show you footage of videos we took during our second day in Bruges after a resting night at the Hotel Aragon. Once again, the weather was a little spotty this day with intermittent clouds and some rain, but it was nice enough to enjoy. Because Bruges is a medieval town, there are plenty of gates. This happens to be one that's near the Church of Our Lady. And here's one of the most common photos taken in Bruges. These little boats go on canal cruises, and later in the video, Diana and I will show you footage from one of those. Here's another gate. This one's pretty fancy. This is the backside or canal side of St. John's Hospital. It has a museum inside as well. Here's a fountain for the horses. In Bruges, you never know whether you're going to turn a corner or cross a canal bridge and see a beautiful vista. Here's the building along the Minnewater, which is the Lake of Love, famous in Bruges. It's known as the Lake of Love because of the death of a woman tragically denied the marriage of her love. Now we're going to take you inside the Church of Our Lady, which is filled with all kinds of wonderful artwork. This is the view from the Groothuis Museum courtyard. These are the tombs of Charles the Bold, the last Duke of Burgundy, and his daughter, Duchess Mary. This is in the choir area, behind the altar. This is the area where Michelangelo's Madonna and Child is kept. There's a lot of history with this particular statue, dating back to its initial completion and rejection by a church in Rome. The person who commissioned it was a little freaked out that the child wasn't a babe and that his genitals were showing. So, when it wasn't accepted in that church, the Church of Our Lady in Bruges said, "We'll take it," and here it is. During World War II, this statue was abducted by the Nazis, despicable scum, and hidden with lots of other artwork in a cave rigged to destroy it if it should be discovered by the Allies. The movie Monuments Men documents the procedures of the men who found these artworks and restored them to their rightful places throughout Europe. Madonna and Child was one of the artworks specifically mentioned in that movie. I am right now. Here we are in the main sanctuary. This is a very ornate pulpit, but the entire church is filled with art and decorations. This photo gives you a little perspective on the size of that massive pulpit. Now I'm going to show you footage from our second full day in Bruges. This is a walking tour. We start in the Markt, or Central Square, where there's a farmer's market going on. We tasted meats and cheeses. My gosh, I have to tell you, the cheese was just wonderful.
GoPro, stop recording.
Here we are inside what is the chocolate line, and according to our guide, it's one of the most select chocolatiers in Bruges. Apparently, the owner of the chocolate line has only 2 stores, the one in Bruges and the one in Antwerp. The owner of this shop was named Chocolatier of the Year in 2023. He has his own farms to produce cacao beans across the world in various locations. These different variants of bean are represented in different chocolate bars that he makes and sells in his 2 shops.
He doesn't want to have shops abroad. For example, Leonidas, Godiva, Neuhaus, they all have shops all over the world. He doesn't want it. So you can only have these shops here, or, okay, you can order them and they export. And this is our thing. Ja, maar ik ben maar dun en dus zoeken dus 2 chocolatiers. Dus kunnen ze ook 2 pralintjes, moet maar zeggen, dat kost 2 pralintjes proeven. Zo degustatie. Which do you prefer? Dark chocolate? Milk chocolate?
I like dark.
I like them all.
Do you want one with a certain flavor? Dat zwart is lekker, hè? Die roze dan?
Ja, maar dat is niet restjes van.
Nee, ja.
Ja, behalve.
Bedoelen.
Omdat veel heks nu terug op te beginnen te dragen. Omdat ze dan praten over de fruit die erin zit.
Ja. Want jij kent dat van de week ook gebruikt. Die met dat bloed heb je niet meer.
I like them all, sorry, the other ones. That's okay.
What do you want? What do you want to taste twice here and then
As you can see, there's a very large selection of different varieties of chocolate and flavorings. We each got 3 different ones to choose from this shop, and we went to a couple other shops later and had some chocolates from there. Clearly, it was way too much chocolate for one day, so we saved a few for the next day. Here's one of the other shops we visited. We went back by at night so we could get a good picture. These very cute little houses around a courtyard are low-income housing in Bruges. Because in Belgium, people have housing provided if they need it. These are little houses that were built for poor people and needy to live in Bruges. As you can see, they're very well kept.
This is a lock that regulates the water level in the canals. And here's the upside where the level's higher.
Unlike in the Netherlands,
This is the
water levels
Biganage,
inland are higher than the ocean,
the place
and they
for
flow outward through Bruges.
widows and single women to live and work in the Middle Ages. And that's their chapel.
quite good. They only made it in this year. But look at the statue, because this is the statue of Saint Elizabeth. You can always
Biganages were built throughout Flanders and
This is the
Belgium
gate
during
and the
Middle
only
Ages.
entrance and exit.
This one in
to the
Bruges is
Biganage.
very well preserved. Typically, nuns lived along with these single women, and they formed a religious community that didn't function under the strict authority or thumb of the church. Here we are at De Halve Maan, the brewery in the midst of Bruges. Diana had her first Belgian hot chocolate here, and I had a very nice dark beer, which was quadruple brewed. This brewery has a pipeline that takes its beer from the center of the city to a bottling plant on the outskirts of town.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That seems to be a pretty unique arrangement. I had a bottle of Straffa Hendrick quadruple brew. This beer has 11% alcohol. It was pretty tasty. Here we are in a lace shop. We saw the traditional methods of forming lace and saw some handmade lace from the region.
Everybody is a little bit short in money, and a lot of people are selling their antique laces. Is it bone or bone? And that's middle.
Here we are in the Historium of Bruges. This is where you can take a VR trip through medieval Bruges. We found that experience pretty cool. There are some other touristy attractions here, and on the top floor, there's a very nice bar. And here we are at the bar I mentioned. This is a nice place to sit during the middle of the day. And
Here
I
we are
had
in the
a flight of
city of
beer.
Bruges.
Diana had some hot chocolate.
This is the famous
Here's a photo of the
beer
adult beverages
wall.
that we had. This is how we ended our walking tour. The next day we slept in a
These
bit,
are all
but then continued with the Belgian
brewed in
theme
Belgium.
of beers and old buildings.
What? You want to try it?
Here's an interesting fact. There are about 380 active breweries this year in Belgium, over 6,000 beers. That's in a country less than a third the size of Ireland. It should go without saying that I can't go to a shop like this without trying something. And in a place where there are thousands of beers, something unique seems to be called for. So we found myself a coconut beer to try, and I had to have it because it's served in a coconut half shell. The reason we were next to the beer wall shop was we were waiting for a canal cruise. From the canal, you can see pretty much the same thing as you can see from the streets, but we thought we'd hear some interesting narrative from the boat driver. Unfortunately, only a third of the information he gave was in English. He had to say it in 2 other languages, so we didn't really learn anything extra from the canal cruise, but we did get some interesting views and shots.
St. John's Hospital.
I do have to say that being on one of these cruises allows you wonderful opportunity to get pictures of other people's hands,
I like that we
hair,
arrived
and
at
ears,
the lowest
because
bridge
the patio on the boat's
of
pretty
town.
tight.
Annually release 10% of our tourists right over here. And you still see the block marks on the bridge. It was also on this bridge where I lost my phone.
Here's the part of town where most of the
In
swans
front of
that
you,
are
behind the house in
managed
front
by
of
the
you,
city
you have the
hang
Lake
out during
of
the
Love. The
summertime.
Lake of Love is one of
In
the
the winter,
most romantic places
they're housed
in Bruges.
indoors.
A lot of just married couples are coming over here to take wedding pictures and to throw some money into the work for happily marriage. But it's useless to say that it's not always working like that, isn't it?
Swans represent the image of Bruges because of an uprising. I talked about that in an earlier video. Here's one of those rare shots you don't get from the street, the underside of a bridge. Here you see the next group of sardines awaiting to be packed on the boat.
The belfry.
We were just in that building. That's where the beer wall is located. So, having been on canal tours of Amsterdam, Ghent, and now Bruges, take my advice, or don't, but skip the canal tour in Bruges unless you're only there for a day, which lets you see the whole city fairly quickly, but without a lot of extra information. Now that you've seen Diana's video of the trip, here's a short montage of some of the photos I took while we were on the canal cruise. This is the gatehouse we went by on our earlier walking tour, where I showed you the gates that allowed water into the city's canals. Here's a view of the Church of Our Lady from the canal. We crossed over that bridge a couple times. It's pretty cool. And here we are back near that very famous view of the belfry. I believe our guide told us that these were warehouses. Before hopping on the canal cruise, we had stopped and gotten ourselves reservations to climb up the belfry. You can't just walk up and go, you have to have a time.
That's a Caroline drum.
There are a couple places to rest as you climb. The first one has examples of the differences between bells and carillons, etc., that you can find in a belfry.
That's just the great bell.
how high we've gotten so far. We've walked up to the part where they talk about the carillon and the bells.
This one.
This is the drum that plays the music automatically. As it turns, there are little squares or knobs that hit various levers and cause the bells to ring. Now the carillon can also be played manually with a keyboard. But this drum turns and plays the music that comes out automatically as the clock strikes. We were told that they do change the programming on the drum periodically, and it takes a couple weeks to reinstall all of the pegs so that it plays the music they want to play. Here we are at the highest point you can reach in the belfry. As you can see, there's wire mesh across the windows. They must have put that up after the movie in Bruges, because that dude jumped out of this place. This is the view to the north, across the Markt. As Diana pans out, you'll see that the ocean is out there. That's the North Sea. Well, maybe I'm a bit optimistic, but trust me, the ocean's out there. I've been there. Here's a view to the southwest. That's St. Salvatore Cathedral. And there's the Church of Our Lady. It's almost due south from the bell tower. Just so you know, I cut the volume on that clip way down, because standing there under those bells, it was deafening. Here's some still photos I took while we were up there. This is the main canal that goes from Bruges to the seaport. We got some video of that earlier, and a barge coming in from the ocean. There's St. Salvatore's Cathedral. And once again, the Church of Our Lady. This is the bar, oldest operating pub in Bruges, the Slissingi. They have their own beer, which I tried. I can see why it's been continuously operated for hundreds of years. It's a warm, inviting place, a pleasant setting, and the locals seem to hang out and have a lot of fun. I don't know what this game is, but it's pretty interesting. This guy looks like he can hardly walk, but man, watch him roll that rod.
Ja, daar hoe het zijn ethos.
Goal! are for dinner at Relais Burgondisch Cruce. I'm sure I butchered that, but this is the hotel that was featured in Bruges, the movie, and our booth was right next to the table they used in the movie. We had a beautiful view out our window, and as the evening wore on, we enjoyed good food and beautiful scenery. After dinner, we took a few more evening photography opportunities because Bruges at night is simply breathtaking. Because we're Americans, we can't pass up the opportunity to get a nice selfie. In the morning, we
That
took
way.
a private
This is-
car from Bruges to
This
Brussels.
is our hotel.
It was about an hour and 10-minute drive.
Scaffolding it all.
I imagine there'll be people outside our window working on things while we're in our room.
The contrast in the small city of Bruges to Brussels was striking. Brussels is vibrant, busy, and obviously there's a lot of construction going on. This is the Opera House of Brussels. It might even be the Opera House for the whole country. Even though Brussels is the capital of Belgium, it still has its winding, tiny medieval streets and places. It also has its share of World Heritage sites, as well as little churches on the corner. This, however, is the Grand Place. Those are guild halls. Guild, I guess, means there's gold all over them. No, not really. Later that day, we had another walking tour, which of course also included a beer tasting and a chocolate tasting. Here's one of the beers I tried. We took a closer look at the Opera House and saw some of what seemed to be famous shops. We went back to the Grand Place, and they were setting up for some kind of festival, but we went inside one of the guild halls and had a beer. We walked a lot of places and saw the pissing boy statue. It's famous. There are many fables about this statue, but I like the one that says the boy saw some hidden explosives and pissed on the fuse to keep it from blowing him up. Here's one of the local churches. We went inside but didn't take video because there were services going. Here we go. Gotta get a selfie. Maybe several. Here's that beer I tried in the guild hall. I gotta say, it was Belgian, which means it's good. Later we found the first beer Diana ever liked, a cherry. That evening we took our guide's recommendation and had the best Thai food we've ever had at Famous. The next morning we got to the airport bright and early, and because Delta is all screwed up, they put us on a Brussels air flight back to New York. I got complimentary beer with my snacks and my meal. We sure hope you enjoyed visiting Bruges and Brussels with us. If you haven't already, check out some of our other videos.